Good morning. Today I am going to continue with the physics chapter, force. So previous class you all have learned about the effects of force and the resultant force. So today I am going to discuss about the force of friction, the characteristics of friction and the types of friction. So let us see first what do you mean by force of friction. Is the force that opposes or resists the motion of an object over the surface, one surface across the another. So the force that opposes. So force of friction means the force that opposes or resists the motion, over, that is of one surface over another. Yes, so that is known as force of friction. So force of friction is the force that opposes or resist the motion is of one surface over another. Now let us see what are the characteristics of friction. Yes, what are the characteristics of friction? First characteristic of friction is friction always acts in the opposite direction of motion. So friction always acts. First characteristic is friction always acts opposite direction to the motion or opposite to motion. Yes, friction always acts opposite towards the motion. For example, a rolling ball. Yes, a rolling ball rolls for a while and it stops. That is because of the force of friction. It always acts in the opposite direction of the motion. Now second one is the frictional force. Frictional force depends on the type of surfaces in contact. So it always depends on the type of surfaces. It depends on the type of surfaces when in contact. If the surface is smooth, what happens? The friction will be very less. So when the surface is smooth, the friction is less. That is why the rolling ball moves for a longer time on smooth floor. So that is an example. So rolling ball moves for a longer time. Why? Because the surface is smooth. So it moves for a longer time on a smooth floor because the friction is less. So that is the second characteristic of friction. Now the third one is the friction force also depends on how the object, according to the heaviness of the object. So if the object is too heavy, the friction will be more. So it also depends on how object is heavy. So if the object is heavy, then what happens? The friction will be more. Next one is friction is relatively a complex phenomenon to explain. Yes, friction is relatively a complex phenomenon to explain. There are two theories. That is, one theory is that any smooth surface is quite rough. Yes, any smooth surface is quite rough. So it contains or it is consisting of depressions and elevations. So it is consisting of depressions and elevation. Now what do you mean by depression and what do you mean by elevation? Depression means a part of the surface which is lower than the other part around it. A part of a surface which is lower than. And elevation means a part of a surface which is higher than the other part around it. So that is known as depression and elevation. So here what happens is the depression, that is any smooth surface is quite rough, consisting of depressions and elevation, and they slide over each other. So here the depression and elevation, they lock into each other, causing the resistance of motion. What do you mean by resistance? Resistance means it helps to slow down or to stop the motion. So that is mean by resistance. So the first theory is any smooth surface have a rough part. So here they consist of depressions and elevation, and these depression and elevation, they what happens is they come into contact or they lock into each other. They lock into each other and causes resistance to motion. That is one theory. And second theory is when the two surfaces comes in contact. When two surfaces comes in contact, what happens? The atoms and the molecules, they pull each other due to the electrostatic force, and they slide over one another, and that causes the resistance of motion. So these are the two theories related to friction. So friction is relatively a complex phenomenon to explain based on these two theories. So I have explained the first theory. If the surface is smooth, then what happens? It has certain rough part containing elevations and depression. And second theory is that when two surfaces come in contact, what happens? When two surfaces come in contact, the atoms and molecules pull each other due to electrostatic force, and that causes resistance of motion. Then next characteristic is friction also produces heat. For example, when you rub your palm, what happens? Because of friction, you feel warm. Yes, that is an example. So friction produces heat. So friction produces heat. Friction produces heat. Okay, friction produces heat. And friction is also produced when an object moves through air or water. So friction is also produced when an object moves through air or water. So these are the characteristics of friction. So we have already seen the first characteristic, that is the friction. What is the first characteristic? Friction always acts in the opposite direction of the motion. And second characteristic is it depends on the type of surfaces in contact. And third one is the friction always depends on the heavy, that is when the object is heavy, the friction will be more. So that is the third characteristic. And then we have seen two theories of friction, and friction also produces heat, and friction is also produced when the objects move through air or water. Now let us see what are the types of friction. So there are different types of friction. First one is the static friction. Second one is the sliding friction. And third one is the rolling friction. So let us see in detail about each. Yes, first one is the static friction. So static friction, it is a frictional force. It is a frictional force between two surfaces which can prevent one surface sliding over another. That type of friction is known as static friction. So static friction is the frictional force between two surfaces. It is a frictional force between two surfaces which can prevent, okay, surfaces which can prevent that is one surface from sliding over another, which can prevent from one surface sliding over another. That type of friction is known as static friction. It keeps the object stationary. When it is placed. For example, a car it prevents a car from sliding down a hill. It prevents a car sliding down a hill when it is placed. So it helps to keep the objects stationary. Yes, that type of friction is known as static friction. So static friction is a frictional force between two surfaces which prevent from one surface from sliding over the other. That type of friction is known as static friction. It is static friction. Yes. Next, let us see what is sliding friction. Sliding friction. Next friction is the sliding friction. Sliding friction actually it results between two surfaces when they are pressed against each other. When they slide. That type of friction is known as sliding friction. So sliding friction is the friction that keeps the two surfaces when they are pressed against each other. When from two surfaces being pressed against each other. That type of friction is known as sliding friction. For example, a book being slid on a table or a washing machine being pulled along the floor. So all these are the examples for sliding friction. Now let us see the last one is the rolling friction. So what is rolling friction? Rolling friction is what is rolling friction? Rolling friction occurs when one object rolls over another. The rolling friction occurs when one object rolls over another. That type of friction is known as rolling friction. For example, a ball or a tire of a wheel rolls on the surface. For example, a ball or a tire of a wheel rolls over a surface. So rolling friction helps to slow down. The motion of a ball or a tire. Yes. So that type of friction is known as rolling friction. Yes. It is not easy to slide. A suitcase on the floor. But if there are wheels, so it becomes very easy to pull. So that is why rolling friction becomes more easier. That is, rolling friction is less than the sliding friction. So these are the types of friction. So students, we have learned the three types of friction. First one is the static friction, second one is the sliding friction, and third one is the rolling friction. So today already we have learned the characteristics of friction and the types of friction. So with this, let me wind, children. See you.